Hey, today I would like to talk about one of the most important skills that I have the privilege to teach during my sessions with clients. That is the skill of assertiveness. Now, verbal assertion is a collaborative and solution-oriented approach to solving problems, okay? Yes, you may have emotions. We're not going to invalidate your emotions, but we're going to apply some coping strategies to keep them within a limit where we can still think clearly about what we need. Because sometimes venting emotions while we're trying to solve problems just makes the problems worse, right? Because we can get into this competitive mindset where we're trying to seek domination, be heard, get the other person to submit, get our way, and there's this sort of emotional tug of war that's happening that where one person is cornered into self-betrayal and diminishing their own identity and their feeling that their feelings even matter and validation, things like that. And the other person is demanding their way, not accepting no at the other person's expense. Okay, so like that aggression usually involves some kind of maybe stance, or there could be insults or threats or negative emotions being dealt out toward the other person, so that when they do get their way, it's at the other person's expense. So those are both toxic. That win-lose spectrum of the power imbalance relationship almost always does not work out very effectively. And so a verbal assertiveness is the way that I always recommend. Now, before I teach you a verbal assertive strategy, I need to let you know that when you use this towards an aggressive person, okay, an aggressive person only thinks in a competitive mindset. And they might really think, wow, this person's acting really strong, they're winning, and they may sometimes want to put another log on the bonfire and make it even hotter because they want their way. And when you're assertive, you're kind of taking control of the direction of the situation using redirection and ask for the solution, and it kind of totally makes sense. So it's really hard to argue with an assertive person, but an aggressive person might try. So if they do tend to escalate when you're being assertive, note to self: make a decision tree about what you're going to do if that happens, okay? Because sometimes if it's a very severely aggressive person, you may have to, consider your own safety in the situation. Not that I want you to do a fawn response automatically. A fawn response when you're like automatically super nice and butt kissy so that you can get them to give in to you, which will never give you the respect that you actually think you're getting. Okay, it's just a way that the brain tries to avoid the punishment of that aggressive person by giving in and fawning and kissing butt and be really nice and trying to manipulate that person into being kind to you. Okay, that's not going to work. They're just going to devalue you worse, and you're going to keep the target on your back. Now, with assertion, it's kind of a bit of a stronger stance, and there's an I message that can go with this. It's I feel, fill in the blank, when, fill in the blank about the situation and ask for the solution. I want, fill in the blank, the solution. Okay, so I can't study when the TV's too loud. Could you please turn it down? Or I feel that you're not listening to me when you're talking when I'm still speaking, so could you please just let me finish? And there's a million ways that verbal assertion can be, there's no one specific way. The I message is a great way, but sometimes if you're one aggressive person, you want to skip the I feel when, because they don't care. They have low empathy, so you might want to just skip to the request for the solution. Okay. Now, another thing is if you're with an aggressive person and they do tend to escalate, there's a reflective statement that you can add to that requested solution, and that sounds like, I can see you don't like what I'm telling you, or I can see that you're upset right now, or I can really see that you might need a minute to digest what I've just explained, or you could just repeat yourself again, like, could you please lower your voice? Could you please help me out here? And when you stay calm and you deliver a verbally assertive statement, you're actually probably more likely to get the solution to the actual problem that you want. It is not going to be a guarantee, so you can cope with no if you get no, okay? But at least you're creating a dialogue premised in a sense of emotional equality. And if you can do that, you're already winning, even if you don't get what you want, because you've vented your nervous system, you've explained what you've wanted, you've stood up for yourself, so you don't have to go and, live in the adrenaline rush about wishing what you could have said and I wish I said this, wish I said that. So you're going to feel at least at peace within your own self you didn't get what you want. So I hope that helps. That's assertion in a nutshell, and perhaps I will tell some more stories about how I've used assertion in my life that has diffused some very tense situations, and you can maybe learn from those examples. We'll have some fun with that, okay? So if you don't remember that, play this again and take some notes about that. I feel blank when, and ask for the solution. Or if you're with a dominant person, the reflective statement, and then ask for the solution that you want. Okay? Good luck with that.